Hello and welcome to the PCTA podcast. I'm your host, Nyanza.
And I'm Amber. Today we're interviewing Mr. Bordieri, new assistant principal of CTE here at PCTA. We will be discussing who he is and how he got here.
Okay, our guest is Mr. Bordieri, a new face here at PCTA.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm glad you're excited to be here. You canceled on us last time.
That's true. That is something I will do in the future as well. I'm sorry.
Wow.
In advance.
Not allowed back. Well, tell us a little about yourself.
So I am new to PCTA. I have been working in Providence for like 20-something years. I was at the Met School for 10 years, had a very brief stint at Johnston High School as an assistant principal before I came here. And I worked at like a small residential school for really troubled kids for 10 years before the Met. And, you know, I never intended on being a teacher. I could tell you more about it. I became a teacher because I hated school. And, yeah, that's the face I usually get. So, but overall, I don't really miss being in those traditional schools where there's not a lot of opportunity for student choice and different ways to show what you learned.
So is that what brought you here? Like, what brought you to PCTA of all places?
Yeah, so at the Met is where I really got to develop the idea that there's a lot out there for students to do. There's a lot of different careers out there, and you can really find your own specialty. And like I said, I hated school. I went to a traditional school. I went to a school where I had to just sit there, learn what was in the chapter, do the quiz at the end of the book, take the test, move on to the next thing. And I forgot most of what I learned because it wasn't connected to what I was actually passionate about. So I wasted a lot of time. So I became somebody who really hates wasting time. So I make a promise to students that I won't waste your time and make you do things that aren't going to be helpful to you. But that means that when I do ask you to do something, you really got to trust me, and we're going to make our best efforts to make that occur. So after being at the Met for so long, where students are out at internships all the time, I wanted to kind of see where there was more of an intersection between traditional learning and having access to all of the cool tools that exist in this school. Instead of having to go out to an internship to get into an auto garage, we have that here. We've got all this stuff set up, and I wanted the opportunity to do something different. And it's just every time I get to walk to the building, I'm always blown away. Oh, we have one of those? That's so cool, right? And I say that several times a day. And I guess it just keeps on going. So I am a really creative educator. So I'm always looking for ways to ask creative questions that will allow me to say yes to kids, right? So if you came to me and you were oh, I really love doing this podcast. Do you think we could do something where we interviewed all the mayors in Rhode Island? I'd be that's really hard, but yes, we're gonna do it. Let's figure out what do we need to do to put that stuff in place. So the more I get to say yes to what students want to do, then I feel like I'm in the right place.
Sounds like a lot of politics if we had a bunch of mayors in here.
Oh, that would be a storm, all right.
You know, I already don't like going to civics class. So, now, I love Mr. Ben. I'm sorry. Okay.
I don't like civics either. No offense, Mr. Cito, but
he's going to see this, and then he's going to be all right, I'm going to fail you now.
Now we're bringing in all the mayors.
No. Wait. Civics capstone. Oh, boy.
Yes.
That is a good idea. Now that I think about it, that isn't a bad idea. I think I'd rather do that than write a letter. I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to write. No, writing letters. Speaking of writing letters, what college did you go to?
So I went to a couple of different schools, and I was somebody who I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I graduated from high school, I originally was going to be a lawyer, like a lot of people in my family. And I also was not a very good student when I was in high school. Like I said, I thought a lot of what I was doing wasn't connected. It wasn't engaging to me. So I just didn't work that hard at it.
So what did you find the least engaging in school?
It would be more of it was less the topic and it was more about how things were taught.
Okay.
So if there was a teacher who was just giving me lots of homework, like busy work, I would tend to be disengaged because like if I felt like if I learned how to do a certain type of math problem, making me do it 30 times wasn't really going to make me a better thinker. It was just really to show that we were doing homework.
So do you feel like you were more of a hands-on learner?
Yeah, I do. Only the school that I went to didn't have any opportunities for being a hands-on learner. It was either you went to college or no, there was no B, like you went to college. And if you didn't, you were kind of seen as like a failure, like in that model. And I didn't know that there were lots of other opportunities like to do that work. What was important to me was that I was super, super lucky in that my family had some land, like a dairy farm, like my uncles, my grandfathers. It's crazy. It's in Rhode Island, right? Cows and everything. And I always liked it just because I got to go there and like ride motorcycles and like do stuff outside. But what I learned is that you had to learn, like from my uncle, who was a farmer, you had to do everything, right? You had to learn how to be a mechanic. You had to know how to like be a vet. You had to know how to operate machinery and manage employees and fix things that were made of wood and steel and stone. So you had to like do a little bit of everything. So like when I was there, I was like, this is how these are the experiences I remember the most, was how to fix these things. So it wasn't until I graduated from high school and I just went to CCRI. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I figured why spend a lot of money on it if I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I know that I'm supposed to go to school. So I went to CCRI. I was there for a little while. I went to Rhode Island College. I got connected with a couple of really cool psychology professors, which I really liked. Psychology was tremendously interesting. But I quickly realized right after graduating from college that like a degree in psychology by itself doesn't really create a lot of opportunities for you the way that a degree in nursing or in other areas might. So I started working with students, and at that point in time, I decided I was going to be a clinician. I wanted to be a therapist and work with kids. So I started doing work with some students that need a lot of help, and I quickly found out that like I really loved working with the kids, and I really did not love working with their parents after a while. So, and that was a lot of what that work entailed. So I was like, no, it's not what I want to do. But while I was working with kids, like I realized that I had a lot of experiences to share about my learning, working on a farm, trying this, trying that, just like trying something until you find out like what works for you. And that's eventually how I got asked to step into the classroom at that school. And then it just started to happen, right? Like that, I was like, okay, the classroom schedule fits more of what I want to do. And it was something convenient at the time. And it sort of became something that I never intended to do, but developed into a passion. So I had to go back to school. So and then I went to Providence College to finish off my the rest of my teaching, education, and my master's work.
It's very interesting. That's kind of like, it's not every teacher's backstory, but I know that the ones that we speak to the most, they always say, they didn't always start off as like wanting to be a teacher.
Yeah, they never really had that end goal in mind when they first started doing what they were doing.
So there was one day, I can remember this day really clearly. I was a senior in high school, and it's probably like March, right? And I'm starting to be like, oh, like I can see this theoretical, imaginary end date of high school. Like I'm not going to have to come back here anymore. That's cool. But I was like, but then what am I going to do? Like I actually have to make a decision. It's a real thing. And I was in history class, and I loved history class because, again, working on the farm, my grandfather was a World War II vet, and he had always taught me about all of his experiences and told me a lot about history. So I'm like, well, I like history. I could probably teach history. Maybe I'll be a history teacher. And I think that lasted for like 10, 15 minutes before I was like, I don't want to be in school. It was like the last thing, like I don't want to be in these walls like anymore. And it wasn't until I was able to get away from school for a little while that I started to realize that like, I just didn't like that school.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of schools out there that can be very cool.
I feel like especially hands-on schools, like I feel like they give you a lot more to offer. It's for all types of learners, basically. That's how I feel about it, honestly. And you think you have something to fall back on, a career, and something that, you may want to do potentially.
I like it. I like options. See, I think like you have options here. Like you can focus on your academics and have that fallback plan. You can focus solely on like your tech and still check off the boxes for academics. You just have more than one way to show what and discover what you're good at.
Right. I totally believe in that. Most definitely.
Indeed, indeed. Okay. All right. I will take this time to have our sponsor message. This episode of the PCTA podcast is sponsored by PCTA Graphics. Our graphics department is available for all your graphics design and print needs. Please stop by H207 for pricing and see how your graphic design service, wow, this is a mouthful, sorry guys, how their graphic design services can help promote your brand. There you go.
Good job, Nyanza.
That was a lot. All right. What were you originally studying? And I don't know if you said that or not.
In college, when I first got there, I was studying psychology.
Psychology. So okay. So at first, you didn't know what you wanted to do once you got out of high school.
Yeah, I knew that I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, right? And I certainly liked the money that like lawyers made.
Right.
And I was like, okay, but I don't just want to major in pre-law, because then if I decide not to be a lawyer, really all I have is this pre-law background. So it's like, well, psychology is something that people use in every part of their lives. Like I'll major in psychology and then go to law school. And then I just figured I didn't want to be a lawyer anymore. But so originally psychology.
So you think your family like had an influence on you on that decision?
That's a great question, because they're all lawyers. So as they're like driving their really nice cars and living in these really nice houses, they were like, oh, Brian, there's enough lawyers in the world. Go do something cool. And I'm like, you're right. And then I'm like, but I would really like to drive that nicer car and live in that nicer house too. And they're like, no, don't worry about it. You're doing great stuff. I thought about that a lot. I've thought about going back and doing law at different times, but I felt like I needed to do something that had more of an impact, that helped people more than just figured out who owes who what.
Being a lawyer is a lot. It's a lot of studying too. I don't know if I could commit to something like that.
It's all a lot of studying.
Law and government class.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
Okay.
Civil and criminal.
So, did you even originally want to work with students? Like, if you did, what made you decide you wanted to?
No, there's another funny story there. I had no interest in working with kids, ever. Like I was the youngest on like both sides of my family. I was always the baby. There was nobody younger than me, so I had no experience ever working with kids. And anytime I did, I was like, oh, like that's weird. I don't want to be around kids. They're annoying.
They are annoying.
And that's still true. But what started to happen was that when I graduated from college, I had a degree in psychology. I'm like, I'm going to go work in mental health. So I started I don't know what to do. I just opened up the classifieds and started applying for jobs under the title of psychology therapy. And I did a few interviews, and they were all with like working with adults that were in need of special services. And I went to another place, and I did my interview, and they were asking me like, how would I feel about working with kids? And I was like, oh, I don't want to work with kids. I don't have any experience with that. It's not something I really want to do. I didn't really know, and I should have checked that place was for kids. And they were like, well, why don't you come back and do a shadow day and just see what it's like? And my advice to anyone is like, no matter what job you're thinking about doing and what you think it's like here, like do your internships, do your shadow days, because that changed everything. I came back and I did one shadow day working with students, and I did another shadow day working with adults, and I was like, it's kids, like all day long. It was so much fun. It was really, it just felt more natural, and the kids were cool, And that was it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it a shot. And I never looked back. It was just, it was like the best experience. And I've had so many cool things that I've been able to do with kids. Like I've taken kids that had never left Rhode Island. Like we went backpacking in the woods for like 4 days and did some really cool things. Yeah, it's scary, right?
No.
To go get that far out of your comfort zone.
I'm not going into the woods now.
Yeah.
Oh, I listen. Camping is a totally different thing.
Camped in my backyard.
Girl, I camped in the woods. Got chased by wild turkeys.
Yeah, it's a good time.
It's not a good. Doesn't sound like a good time. But you found these cool group of students, and now you're here. See, that's good. We're cool.
Yeah, totally.
We're cool, guys.
Yeah.
You hear that, guys? We're cool.
You got to say yes to opportunities.
You're cool. You're cool.
Right? That's how you meet cool people. Right? You say yes to opportunities, right? Somebody says, hey, would you like to come and talk to this group of people? Would you like to? Yeah, right. No, it's like the big shift. But it's, yeah, like when somebody puts an opportunity out there for you to try something, especially something you aren't comfortable with because you don't know a lot about it, then you've got to try it. Otherwise, you never know about it.
So step outside your comfort zone.
That was me with my internship. It was the first time me doing something by myself, recording actually. And once I did it, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty fun. I had a lot of fun. And then I ended up meeting one of the freshmen in my graphics class there. So that was pretty cool too.
You met some friends.
Friends.
Okay. Well, what's more to come? What's for the future?
You know, as my story tells, like I am always really good at knowing what's next, right? Like I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think it's been a weird time for me. Like I worked for like 10 years at this one school, and then 10 years at the Met, and then like in the last 6 months, this is like the third school I've worked in. So I've never had this much like change in my life. But I just want to get really good at what I'm doing here. And that starts with just figuring out like the map. Like this school is huge.
Oh, this school is
so it's
amazing.
like I think I like wore out
Right.
like a pair of
Basement.
shoes and like a smartwatch just tracking data of like how much I walk and up and down stairs. So my first step is to actually figure out, how does this place work? What do students think about how this place works? How can I remove hassles from the day-to-day stuff that teachers have to do so that they can more easily, you know, say yes to students, right? It all comes down to being like, what can we do so that kids can say yes to opportunities that are in front of them? So if I ever like leave here and I can say I did that, right? Kids were able to do stuff that they couldn't do before I got there, then I'm going to be really happy about that.
PCTA has went through a lot of cycling change cycles, whatever you want to say. We've gone through a lot since 9th grade hit.
Yes.
There is constantly something going on, changing all around, all about. It's crazy, and we're still going, so yay to that.
This is like our 5th different platform that we are currently using.
We had 6 periods freshman year, 5 periods, I don't even know, but we had sophomore year. 5 periods junior year.
10. Yeah. We had a lot of periods.
7 periods. Wow. That's crazy.
It felt like 10. Or was it 8? Did you count graphics?
Listen,
Academics and graphics.
I think it was 7. Yeah, we have 4 last year. Now we have 5. And about the maze thing for the school, I can tell you half these teachers haven't even been in sections of this school yet. But we have been in a lot of sections because we're always delivering things everywhere. So
Yeah.
the basement's creepy. Don't go down there.
The roof.
The roof.
Right? By the pool?
There's a pool.
Yeah, there's other roof. It's
Take us to the
blocked
pool.
off.
Take us to the
Who
pool.
wants to go up there?
I want to go up
Falls
there.
through the ceiling.
I haven't, bro. Who wants to go to the pool? Raise your hand.
It's cold out today.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting.
That's right. The pool's
I wasn't
heated.
expecting that. Okay. Well, once again, you are listening to the PCTA podcast. We want to thank our guest today, Mr. Bordieri, for sharing his story with us.
Excellent. Right. Thanks for having me. A lot of fun. Right, let's do it again once I've like had a chance to like get lost a couple more times and see if I'm still all happy about it.
I'm just trying to see the pool. We see the pool, and then we do like a story time episode on
I think the pool is right on Fricker Street. Like right there. You see it all the time, right?
All right, y'all. Keep an eye out for our next episode coming to you soon. I don't know when, so don't ask me when.
Yeah.